In today's world, how much time have you spent building trust between people where they are not just giving and receiving work from each other? It's never all about you. It's never all about me. It's me, you, and our environment. Me, we, world. If you're saying things to your teams like, that's the way we've always done it, you need to push through, you will not succeed. You will create resentment and you will create turnover.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting session on Friday the 13th, which talks about spotting and beating burnout. Yes, my fellow Edge members, it's an exciting Friday evening in Mumbai, where I'm coming to you from. And I have my guest, Dr. Neha Sangwan, who's joining us from Boston. She's a physician, engineer, an entrepreneur, and a performance coach. She empowers individuals and organizations to thrive under pressure. As a founder of Intuitive Intelligence, her company, she combines medical science with communication strategies to combat stress, prevent burnout, and promote sustainable high performance. Her unique methodology, and we're going to learn a lot about it today, blends neuroscience, emotional intelligence, and even mindfulness and meditation. No wonder companies like Google, Apple, American Express, and even the Mass General Hospital uses her methodology and her framework to foster wellness in individuals and teams. As an entrepreneur, as a founder of a company, there is a lot of stress we deal with, and Dr. Sangwan is coaching the best Silicon Valley startups right now to help them cope with this. She has written many books and she's going to talk about them. She has given TEDx talks. uh, but more importantly, through her practices, she helps teams and executives reconnect with their purpose. Purpose is the most important aspect of everything, and it's the purpose which enhances performance. Uh, and she was also named one of the world's top 50 executive coaches by Thinkers 50. So this session is going to be full of insights, full of ideas, and hopefully this is going to help you and your teammates, your family members, to deal with one of the most important topics, which is burnout. So without any further ado, let me welcome Dr. Sangwan.
Hi, Vishal. Hi, everybody. And you can just call me Neha. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. Really excited to have you here.
You bet. I'm excited to be here.
So I think what we will do is we will start the session with your presentation where you talk about your framework and how you are helping people manage and talk about even identifying something like stress, because a lot of people don't even realize that they are burning out, and especially this is true with the high performing individual. This is a problem with a lot of people who are in leadership roles. So would love to know more about what you think, and how do we identify, and your framework which Google and all the key companies you deal with are learning from.
Awesome. So, this is really about being powered by me, right? So, going from burned out to fully charged at work and in life. And if you think about it, every one of us is somewhere on this spectrum at all times. And so, this is about your energy. And I'm going to give you a little bit because this is one of the, well, first of all, what I want to say is yes, I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, biomedical engineer, and internal medicine physician. And I say, don't worry about any of that. That just means I'm a really good Indian child. And when we talk about burnout, a lot of people think, oh, if somebody burns out, they're weak or they can't hack it. Is it their fault? I really want us to take an expanded vision here. No, it is not your fault if you burn out. These are probably some of the most dedicated employees, people you work with. They're the ones overriding their own signals to get the job done. So the first thing in triple vision, when you think about anything complex, I want you to think about it as me, we, world. You have to know yourself. You have to understand how you get signals. That's the foundation. Once you do that, then you can serve other people, change the world. And the degree to which you understand yourself will determine how big of an impact and how sustainable your impact is in the world. Otherwise, you'll burn out. So what I'd say here for one moment, I'm going to come back and just give you my story quickly. I was a hospital physician, very traditional, white coat in the hospital, seeing 18 hospitalized patients a day, heart attacks, strokes, pneumonias, all the sickest ones. One day I walked in and I was also taking all incoming transfers from all over the region. I walked up to a nurse and I said, "Hey, Nina, could you please get me 40 milliequivalents of IV potassium for the gentleman in 636? And she looked right back at me and said, "Dr. Sangwan, are you okay?" That was my first indication that I might not be. And I said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" And she said, "That is the fourth time in under 5 minutes you've asked me that same question, and I've answered you every time." That was my introduction to burnout, and it is very fitting that I am sitting behind a brick wall, okay? Because that was me literally hitting a brick wall. And in that moment, I realized that I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew something was wrong. So I walked to the bathroom, took the phone out of my pocket, called a psychiatric colleague, and said, "I really need to see you. Something's wrong." And this colleague said, "Okay, how's 5 o'clock today?" And I said, "How's now?" We never do this in medicine. Nobody is ever calling for help. We don't dial 911 for ourselves. And this was one of those moments for me. I have now spent the next 20 years of my life trying to understand what I believe my colleagues do not understand. We think it's a badge of honor to push through our own physiology, our own biology, to serve our patients. If somebody's bleeding out, if somebody's having a heart attack, if somebody's having a stroke, it is my job not to care whether I need to go to the bathroom or have a drink of water. It is my job to forego me to take care of them. The startup world, entrepreneurs, business has taken on that level of urgency. And I think what's happening is we are forgetting about our own biology in an effort to make the next deadline, get the next round of funding, whatever it is. And so let me give you a little bit of background on this. Is going to give you some practical knowledge, each of you that are listening, around how I started to unravel and work backwards to figure this out. So what I learned in the few sessions that I had, the several sessions, so they immediately put me on leave. So I was on stress leave. They gave me two things: paid time off, which I did not want. I am someone who gets my value from performing. I love to be working. I don't want free money coming in, right? That felt like a big loss, a big failure. I will tell you as I move through this, the good news is at the end of this, that was not only not a failure, it was the beginning of the life that I lead today, 20 years later. It is such a learning moment for me, a rewiring of my world. So how do you pick up signals? I call it your body map. We're all so hypervigilant about the outside world and figuring out what other people need from us, how will this look on social media, what are other people going to think, that we miss the data coming from within us, which is, I call it our body map. This is our physiology. This is when we feel heavy, we feel tired, our heart is racing, we have headaches, we have neck stiffness, all the things we push through, your stomach dropping, your throat tightening, okay? So for me, when I get stressed, when I move out of my comfort zone, I feel heavy, I have chest, a little bit of chest, like my heart might start racing, I have throat constriction and my stomach dropping. I want each of you to take a moment and notice when you move out of your comfort zone, what's happening for you. And it's okay if you don't know. If you don't know, that's a very acceptable answer. Now, when your body starts talking, the question is, what do you do next? Because it might slow you down. You might have a deadline to get through. So I had a time-tested equation that kept me working 24/7 for 36-hour shifts. It was 2 ice cold 16-ounce Mountain Dews plus a king-size Snickers bar, and you could get me to stay awake for 36 hours. Now, these are called coping strategies, mechanisms to override that discomfort. Mine, I called it the sugar caffeine buzz strategy, right? What's yours? How do you get over deadlines when you're exhausted, when you're tired? Is it the retail therapy strategy? Is it the Netflix binge strategy? Is it the organize the closet strategy? Is it the exercise it off strategy? Is it the Red Bull strategy? Energy drink? Is it a glass of wine? What is it when stress gets to be too much? How do you numb those signals coming from your own body? So something really important, and we can talk about this, Vishal, if you're interested, but a lot of people judge these ways that they cope. I don't. I thank them. Thank you, sugar caffeine buzz strategy, for getting me through those 36-hour shifts. So I'm grateful to them. Right now, what I want to tell you is, what is burnout? How do you actually define it? It's this amorphous experience. Well, it's exhaustion, physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. When that goes on for some time, it turns into cynicism, where you start to feel, oh my gosh, I don't know no matter how hard I try, I'm not sure it's going to change anything. Sometimes you start to distance yourselves from your team members, people you're working with. You refer to them in ways that are not their name. You try to disconnect, not because you're not a caring person, but because you don't have the energy. You don't have the energy that social connection takes. Sometimes you don't start to believe in yourself, cynicism, and then that's called depersonalization. And the last one I gave you a very clear example of, which is ineffectiveness, when I literally hit the brick wall of asking the same thing over and over again and not remembering. So there's phases of burnout, 3 of them. There's an alarm phase in the beginning where you feel like you've jumped on a treadmill and it's going too fast. The next one is when you do that for a very long period of time, you've used all these coping strategies, and now you're moving into the chronic adaptation phase where you're hanging on by a thread, getting through each day, barely. And then one more thing happens, and you go sliding down the slippery slope of burnout to ineffectiveness. So there's a timeline. You're not fine on Monday and burned out on Friday. That's not how it works. Your body is way too smart and sophisticated. So you now, the warning signs of burnout are really important for you to know and pick up on in you or those you love and lead. We're in a world moving faster and faster by the minute. That treadmill that I told you about, what are some things you're going to be thinking about? Well, there's some physical symptoms, your agitated heart palpitations, perhaps insomnia, intestinal issues. What I really want to be clear about here is I want to be clear that if you have these physical symptoms, that does not mean you're burned out. It means you need to go see your doctor. That's the first thing you need to do. Get a medical provider to clear you physically that there's nothing else going on. Once you get a clear bill of health, but you're still not feeling well, then you should be thinking of things like burnout. Sometimes you're going to be defensive, frustrated, angry, irritable. The way it looks in the world is you start missing deadlines, and that's not like you. You can't really function. You're staying late. You're coming in late. Things that are not you. You're starting to say, oh, I made a mistake. That's not like me. I reacted to so-and-so. That's not like me. You have a weekend off and you still are fatigued. If that goes on for quite some time, you move into the adaptation phase. You're procrastinating. Sometimes you call in sick. You're socially withdrawing. That's that depersonalization, cynicism, depersonalization that starts. You get resentful, right? And then I know you're at the end of that chronic adaptation phase when you start becoming apathetic. You know what? Nothing I do is going to make a difference. Or you start using more and more of your coping mechanisms. You used to need, a double latte. Now you need one twice a day. So when you start using more and more of your coping mechanisms just to get the same effect. And then exhaustion is when you take time off, you're still not recovered. You start having difficulty functioning, like I shared with you, debilitating headaches, pain, and in the worst cases, depression, hopelessness, suicidal ideation. And depression and burnout are not the same thing. That's something we can talk about later if that's interesting to you. but they can overlap. There's big discussion in all of this. So if you or someone you care about is, suffering from anxiety, there's a whole experience that I can give you on that. Here's how I'm going to wrap up, and we're going to move into our discussion. If you are burned out or showing signs of stress and you go to get help, this is the typical thing you're going to get from a doctor. You're going to get some time off, 10 days off, a month off, whatever it is. They're also going to give you some combination of an antidepressant, anti-anxiety, or sleep medication, Prozac, Ambien, Ativan, that is going to depend on the context in which you present. If you have a very forward-thinking medical provider, maybe they'll give you tell you to do some stress management or do yoga, go in nature, go to the beach, relax, okay? This is a typical prescription. Here's the problem. 10 days later, a month later, you go back to work with no idea how you got there or what to do differently to make a new outcome. So what I'm saying is, yes, you need to be stopped from the pattern that you're in, but you also need to simultaneously figure out where you're having a net gain or a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So remember, if you're feeling burned out, you have to know yourself. You have to know your body map, your signals, how you override it with coping mechanisms. Know yourself. Go deep into that so that you can serve others and change the world. And the way that we go into me and knowing me is, here's the 5-step program where we figure out, do you have a net gain or a net drain in your physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual energy? So I'm going to stop there and let's get into the nitty gritty of it all. Over to you, Vishal.
That was incredible. I think, Neha, you packed a lot of interesting points in this short presentation. But what was really intriguing to me was the symptoms you talked about, especially the physical symptoms, insomnia, headache and bad stomach. The current challenge is that a lot of people think of this as just normal, right? And especially when it's a badge of honor to do overnighters, and it's a badge of honor to keep guzzling coffee and all the stimulants while you're working. So a lot of what are the symptoms are what are in the startup tech world or in general entrepreneurship world considered that, hey, you have to do this. So how does somebody figure out that are their symptoms really centered around uh, burnout, or is it just normal health issues?
So number one that I learned when I was on stress leave, I started doing research because my colleagues really didn't understand this. The second chapter of my book, Empowered by Me, is 5 conversations between me and a psychiatrist. So you're watching 2 doctors
Mhm.
talk about what this is and figure it out. This is 20 years ago. So what I would say to you is stress causes or exacerbates more than 80% of all illness. I'm going to say it again.
Wow,
Stress causes or
80%.
exacerbates more than 80% of all illness. So some patterns I learned about me that I hope will help those listening. When I started to understand where this all came from, you know how in the Indian culture, we don't think anything of passing children around in the extended family? Like, hey, let your nanny take care of it. Hey, let so-and-so. Hey, when I was young, my parents came to America. They had an arranged marriage. They came to the US in 1965. When I was born in 1970, my nanny, my mother's mother, was here taking care of us. My grandfather got a job in Africa, in the United Nations, and needed her to come. She picked me up at 3 months old and took me with her. I spent 2 years as a UN baby in Africa with my grandparents. I came back at 2 years old, but what I will tell you is what my parents didn't think much of, which is me moving around with family, was a huge impact on me. Because at 2 years old, I thought my grandparents were my parents. Yes? So you take me away from them, and a 2-year-old, that is devastating. So it took me more than a month of crying, etc. I figured all of this out later. But why I'm telling you all of this is I figured out how I became such a people pleaser. I was traumatized in having lost my nani and nana. I didn't understand, what did I do wrong? That was where I went to. So my need to please the outside world started very young because I didn't want to be sent away again. I thought I might have done something wrong. Fast forward, I hear my father saying, wow, he was talking to a friend. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. And he said, yeah, just my luck. The second one's a girl too. I just wanted a boy, a son, who would become an engineer in my footsteps. Is it any surprise to anybody listening why I became an engineer? I was good at math and science. I couldn't become the son he wanted, but I sure could become the engineer he wanted. So that people pleasing, getting rid of what maybe Neha wants, but focusing very heavily on what my parents think of me, what the Indian community wants of me, what the culture is asking of me. I overheard my mother saying, I missed my calling as a doctor. My parents wanted me to get married. They didn't want me to have a pager on my hip. They wanted me to be a good mother and a good wife. It was our culture, right? My mom's 80 years old. It's a different generation. But you can see how those pressures were real on her. Now I'm a people pleaser. My biggest trauma is feeling abandoned or feeling like I don't belong. What do? I figure out that engineering and medicine are not mutually exclusive. I can do one and do the other one. So that's why I start this with, yes, I'm an engineer. I'm a doctor. That just means I'm a really good Indian child, right? Because my own trauma, why I say you must know me, is when I understood that it's not just the hospital, it's not just the entrepreneurial environment. There is a reason my own trauma propels me forward to pleasing the world and ignoring me.
But most people are in denial, right? The problem is not about knowing me. Even if I know me, I'll say, no, it's not me. This is because you always have a reason why something is happening, and this is a deadline, or this is just, a customer who's bad, or this is just how, the environment is. So you always blame everything around you in a normal scenario.
That's the short-term way of avoiding feeling my emotions. Okay. So if I grow up where image is most important, where what the other people think of me matters more, what my parents think of me, that dictates my world. The other thing is, if I don't learn how to handle disappointment, what you're speaking of, Vishal, is if I blame other people, okay, if I blame the other person, the truth is, it's never all about you. It's never all about me. It's me, you, and our environment. Me, we, world. So if you want to look at the truth of any situation, you need to consider yourself, you need to consider the other person, and you need to consider the environment. So that's the truth. But what people do as a strategy is they blame others, then they don't have to work, they don't have to feel the discomfort in their body map, that physiology. Because when I might think I have something to do with this, maybe I feel shame, maybe I feel guilt, maybe I feel upset, maybe I won't live up to other people's expectations. What if my entrepreneurial endeavor fails? Am I a failure? Well, I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to blame somebody else. I'll blame the team, blame the customer. It's fine if you want to do this. It just is not a path to success or true, what I call, a conscious way of being and community. Because the way we handle our failures and mistakes is a big way we have a net drain of energy. If you're an entrepreneur, by definition, you are going into the world and risking. You're going where people have not gone. And if you cannot make a mistake, you will not learn your full potential. So let's get comfortable with discomfort. Let's start to know what it feels like to feel disappointed, to fail and learn from it. We do hard things. We are capable of this, but many of us have not been taught this in our families.
No, just think about this. You talked about your 80-year-old mother That's a very different generation.
It is.
Stress meant something very different to them, to
Yes.
the generation, the millennials, and now, of course, the Gen Zs. Already we are talking about how difficult it is for us to deal with them in workplaces. They are wired very differently. So, how does burnout or stress look different in these different generations, and what is causing them?
Yeah. So, first of all, once again, we can say that Gen Z is a problem, okay? And we cannot own our own generational issues. Vishal, I went through mechanical biomedical engineering and went on to medical school without any undergrad in biology or physiology or anatomy. Can you imagine the amount of stress I was willing to take on? Okay. I didn't think of myself. So I'm in a generation who thinks to themselves, whatever it takes, push through it. Don't consider yourself. At 34 years old, I burned out. 34, right? It it takes a lot to break down a body at 34. Okay? But I was not going to listen to it because I cared more about the outside world. What if Gen Z is not the problem that we think it is? Okay? Because they won't push through their own biology. What if Gen Z is here to teach us some balance? What if Gen Z came in and saw what we did to ourselves and said, that's not the kind of parent I want to be. That's not the kind of life I want to live. What if we are all here to learn from one another? What if I'm here to help them go farther than they would normally go? And what if they're here to remind me of the joy I should experience in my life? What if in the end, the truth and joy and happiness and success is somewhere in the middle of us honoring each other?
And then that's the problem, right? Sometimes I'm just generalizing that leaders are
Yep.
confused when their teams complain that they're burnt out. While
Sure.
I, as a manager, I'm saying, what is going on? Why are you burnt out? You better put in the extra work. I have done this when I was your age. The most common
Right.
thing, we always tell that, hey, when I was your age, I used to work 6 days a week, 20 hours a day. And, you are complaining about not getting a Saturday off. So, how does the team dynamic works in because it's also the environment which pushes pressure on you, not only you individually.
Yes. So here is where the me we world comes in. Okay. There is you being able to understand where you end and another person begins. If I'm a leader, this is what I'm going to tell you. You want to succeed in the next level of this relay race of companies. Get curious, not furious. Don't get mad about your teams. Lead with heart. Because this is not our world. This is not my world 20 years ago. If anybody hasn't figured out that generative AI is going to change us every day, if you're saying things to your teams like that's the way we've always done it, you need to push through, you will not succeed. You will create resentment and you will create turnover, which will cost you a lot more money. But in the short term, if you don't have the emotional capacity to sit through the discomfort, if you're going to use your own positional power to push people, that's not going to work in this generation. That's not going to work. They've already showed us that. And we need to get curious, not furious. We need to look at what strength is and redefine it. It is not a weakness in a world of the unknown, changing faster and faster by the minute, to feel vulnerable, to take risks, to say you don't know. This is the new world we're in because you know what? COVID taught us that. None of us knew as medical professionals what was happening. We were all figuring it out in real time, kind of like a startup, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't own, this is what I do. I have a lot of schooling, I have a lot of experience. But when I'm sitting in front of a company of thousands of people and someone asks me a question, you know what I say? Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up because I think there might be other people who want to know this as well. You got to give me a little bit of time because I want to give you a more thoughtful answer. Right now, I don't have the answer, to give you a full, thoughtful answer. By Monday, you will get an answer from me.
So what is your on the same thing, right? What is your advice to founders or managers or leaders who are told by their HR teams or somebody that, hey, your teams are exhausted, they are all burnt out,
Yep.
and you are still not meeting timelines, etc. So a lot of times there is this confusion between the teams and the managers and the HR and whoever else,
Yes.
and that is what is leading to a larger problem.
So this can all be solved because all of these things will build upon each other. Okay. Number one, you spoke about this in the opening. People need to have a connection to a higher purpose. Okay. What they're doing has to matter. Now, when we're making decisions about money, about projects, about timelines, all of this, a lot of times, these are signals, just like your body map gives you signals with your heart racing and your throat constricting. So too is a signal from your team. We don't have the resources. We're exhausted. Like these are like team body map signals. Okay. You're getting these things. You can push them harder in the short term. But what I promise you is you are going to pay at some time. At some point, you're going to pay. So sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. There has to be founders are getting pressure from their investors, from their boards, whatever it is. This is a systemic experience, which is why I started this with me, we world. Okay. One thing we've learned, is that with the next generation, with this culture that we're in, that's changing faster and faster by the minute, we need to adapt ourselves. You have to upgrade the human software to meet the world in which we function. But typically, this has not been valued. I told you, if you don't have a team that understands how to handle disappointment, not cover things up because they don't want to fail, you're going to be in trouble down the road. You're going to be on substances. People are going to have to figure out ways to numb that discomfort. To me, the most important thing leaders can do is think about themselves, their teams, and the company at large. You got to think now, short term, long term. You got to have an expanded vision, not now or next quarter. You have to be thinking all of these things when change is happening this quickly. So when you're saying between HR and leaders and teams, okay, you think that the culture of a company is separate from the performance outcome. They are not. They are integrated. And when people start to be able to communicate, here's what I'd ask you. In today's world, how much time have you spent building trust between people where they are not just giving and receiving work from each other? If they don't care about each other, they're not going to go above and beyond. They're going to do exactly what is needed and required to do of them, and they're going to peace out because they are very exhausted. This is not because they're lazy. This is because you have to tap into a human being caring about the mission, the purpose. You have to have them care about each other. And then you get people going above and beyond. Think about your best friend, Vishal, who you're really close to, your group of friends. Would you go above and beyond for them? Yes, you would stretch yourself. If we want this from human beings, they need to have the ability to speak up, say what they need. They need to care about themselves and each other. And HR, we have to align the initiatives for sustainability. Short term, yes, you've got to get things over the deadline. But we have to be thinking a little bit longer term now. We can make things more and more efficient. Of course, that's what's happening. But the pace of change, if you don't upgrade people's ability, so I'm being asked to speak next year, okay? AI and everything was what was this year. You know what next year is? How do we lead with heart? How do we tap back into the human being? So what we think is so sexy and interesting on technology and this and that, we've outsmarted ourselves because until you upgrade the human software to handle the level of pace, change, innovation, disappointment, failure, we are not going to meet these technologies where we need to.
No, but yeah, just think about it, right? I mean, you talk to so many Silicon Valley founders, and even a lot of that is now happening in India. Uh, the whole hustle culture, or the fake it till you make it kind of
Yeah.
a culture, or a culture where someone thrives in chaos always, and
Yep.
always hustling. When they believe that, pushing people and, being somebody who's obnoxious is actually the way to do business, and it's not about, if you can't take pressure, you should not be working here. We recently had a lot of debate around this when Narayan Murthy suggested in one of the sessions that people should be working 70 hours a week, and then everybody kind of pounced on him and all of that, right? So I think the challenge is that, how do you, figure out, how does, you know people just are in denial all the time with this.
Yes. So this is the same thing I want to bring up that is the cultural generation of my parents. Okay. Success to them was their daughter becoming an engineer and a doctor. Okay. I became all of those things and promptly burned out. Am I successful? Am I a failure? What am I? By whose standards?
But burnout was not even a problem, in 15, 20 years back. That was not even a problem anybody talked about. It just looks like, for a lot of people, it looks like a new excuse for people to not deliver, or if they did not meet their deadlines, they'll say, oh, I just got burnt out, I need a break.
So, what I want you to know is it was a problem. It was not talked about. There was a lot of judgment around it. Doctors didn't even know what it was, although they were experiencing it very much. So, what I want you to know is it takes time for human beings to be able to adjust and change. Right now, technology is moving faster than culture. That's the gap we're in right now. We're also, what you're speaking about is a very little bit paternalistic way of thinking. Just tough it up and keep going. Nobody wants to be saying to you, I'm not okay. Nobody wants to say that. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, let me see how little I can do today. Let me see how little I can get away with. When we have judgments about other people, that they're lazy, that they're not working hard, pay attention to what generation you're in and who told you what.
No, but that's the role models, right? Look at somebody like Elon Musk. Like, people are looking at him, he sleeps in his office and is always on Twitter, and, always, and even, to some extent, Trump. These are, people are observing their leadership style. And, a lot has also been talked about Steve Jobs' leadership style, where they were, borderline obnoxious. So I
Mhm.
think that the question here is that when your role models are doing this, how
Yep.
do you justify that this is wrong?
So tell me what people admire about Elon Musk or Trump. What are the qualities of leadership that they admire?
No, I just think that it's all about, their whole, let me use the word, uh, their attitude of pushing things and pushing the system beyond its limit, right?
Yeah.
They're constantly trying to push the system. And that is what, when people are saying, listen, I know you are burnt out because I'm trying to make big changes. And, uh, that is kind of part of the problem in this.
Okay. Everybody gets to decide who their role models are. Okay. For those of you that it's Elon Musk and Trump, okay, what you want to do is you want to figure out what you admire about them. Okay. It might be bull in the china shop. Like you don't like something, just push right through it. It goes back to what we spoke about, Vishal. People who are uncomfortable with their own emotions and feeling what's actually happening are going to push through anything that's in front of them and use their positional power to break whatever's around them. Okay? That's one way of leadership. That is not the way I coach these companies and these teams.
No, but the problem is, one of the person is the richest man, and one of the person is the most powerful man. So I think the problem is that people can consider success And then they kind of use these things and say, to be successful, I
Yep.
need to be burnt out, and I need to burn the candle on not all ends, but burn the entire candle every day.
Yes. So let's go back to what you've said here. This is very important. The richest man in the world and the most powerful man in the world. And what is success? This is what we need to stay. This is the most important thing we're going to talk about. When I was young, success meant to me pleasing my parents and the Indian community. That led me to engineering medicine and burnout. Why? Because in triple vision, me, we world, who was I not paying attention to? Me. That skyscraper cannot be built without a foundation. Okay. If the people listening want to think money is the goal and think positional power is where they want to be, and that is their definition of success, follow whomever you think is doing that. Okay. But here's what I'd ask you. Do they seem happy? Do they seem like joyful people? Is their personal life and their life around them seem like it's filled with joy and happiness? Do they feel peaceful to you? When you see them, do they seem, what is your definition of success? Let me tell you what mine is now. Now that I have burned out, now that I am grateful to my parents because they steered me in what they thought was going to give me the most stable foundation in a new country. You bet. I have financial stability. I can get a job. I am respected in the community. I write books. People read them. People listen to what I speak about. So I'm grateful to my parents. Thank you. Now, you know what the harder 20 years is? The last 20 years I've spent saying, who am I? And how do I want to show up in the world? And what is the difference I want to make? That's a much harder question. My definition of success is that I take care of this precious being, that I use my energy and effort and expertise to serve others in a meaningful way that matters, and that I change the world for the better by being here. I learned this as a doctor sitting at the bedside of people dying. I was 28 years old. Everybody else was backpacking Europe and doing whatever they were doing. I was sitting at the bedside of people who were dying. And let me tell you, Vishal, not one of them talked about money. Not one of them talked about working more. You know what they talked about? Very, very consistently. Was I loved? Did I love others well? The relationships in their life that mattered. Did I make an impact in the world? That because I was here, the world will be better. And lastly, their regrets. The regrets were not about what they tried at and failed. Never. You know what the regrets were? I never told my son that I loved him. I missed making up that fight I had with my coworker. We broke apart. I never said sorry. The things they didn't have the courage to do. Those are the things. And I believe people said, oh, it must be so depressing to hang out with people who are so old. I said, I'm in my 20s and they're giving me the answer to the end of the game. They're showing me when you're on your deathbed, they're not talking about chit chat. They're only talking about what mattered in their life. So what I'd ask the people listening, this is only something you can answer. The world will tell you that being the richest man, busting through things, it is important to change norms, but change them from what you value, what matters to you. Treat other people in a way that at the end of your life, you will be proud, because you know what these people did? They had to live their life twice. Once forward and once in reflection. Live it in a way that will make you proud. And don't live it by what the world thinks you should be doing. Get clear about what success means to you and live it that way, because you're going to live it multiple times. If you care more about what other people think, if you want to damage your relationships to accomplish whatever it is, make that choice and know that that's what will make you happy.
So
right?
if someone who's listening to our talk today
Yeah.
is hanging by a thread and
Yeah.
still showing up, uh, what would you tell them that they should be doing today and not tomorrow?
So what I would say is I have a website that I'm happy to give you. It's in the book. At the end of chapter 2, it says, this is what burnout is. If you notice any of these symptoms, stop reading my book. You don't need to read a book. What you need to do is go to the Powered by Me emergency toolkit. So if you know you are someone who's having trouble sleeping, you recognize some of these symptoms, and you don't know what to do. The first thing you have to do is hit pause. The second thing you need to do is get your physiology back in order. The way that you do this very quickly, see, people don't even know this. Breathing, this is so crazy. It's in yoga, it's in Indian, you see it everywhere. Don't tell me to stop and take a deep breath. Let me tell you why it's important. Right now, while you're watching this, if you feel your bottom sitting wherever you are, you feel your feet on the ground, and you start to take a deep breath, what you do is you take your diaphragm, a muscle, underneath your lungs and above your stomach. It looks like an umbrella. When you take a slow, deep breath, you force the diaphragm to contract and flatten. This triggers your vagus nerve, slows your heart rate down, and calms you immediately. When you're in a meeting and someone else takes credit for what you did, when you're feeling underappreciated, take 3 slow, deep breaths and get your own grounding before you answer, before you react, before you do something. So, what I'd say is, I'm going to give you a link to guided imageries, ways that somebody who's hanging on by a thread can reground and recenter themselves. Okay? Because that's the first thing you need to do. You cannot solve anything if you yourself are not connected, right? If you yourself are not grounded, because then what you'll do is you'll say things you don't mean that you have to clean up. You'll yell at people, break relationships, do all sorts of things. And then you're going to have a bigger problem on your hands.
So does also this whole crisis of burnout also exposes the whole challenge of people's search for meaning? Because right now, in the world of social media, people are seeing these perfect lives, and for them, success is very superficial. But the reality is that people just don't have a sense of purpose. And that is what, and the purpose is, how do I make more money, or how do I become more richer, and how do I become more powerful? And
Yeah.
one of the things which I also hear a lot is that, hey, first I have to burn out, and once I become rich is when I will start thinking about mental health and other things, right? So I can do that later, but to first reach my destination, like a rocket, I have to burn the entire fuel and reach the orbit.
Listen, it is a big job. When you take on being an entrepreneur, you are someone who's saying, I'm ready to sacrifice my own energy, my own, time, energy to push through it. So I want to honor that I'm an entrepreneur. I've been one for 20 years. I'm paving a brand new path in healthcare and medicine. Okay. So there is a reality of what you're saying. Okay. So this is what I find in entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, all over the world. Entrepreneurs usually are very clear on their mission. Okay. And my God, if your mission is just to get rich or to do whatever you're doing, to please your parents, whatever, to have a name in society, what I will tell you is at the end, you will figure out that you feel empty once you've achieved it. So, my experience with entrepreneurs that are willing to go into the fire and do all of this is that a lot of them do have a higher purpose. They are connected. Okay. But here's where they burn out as well. They burn out because they're avoiding their home life. They're avoiding their personal life. There's other areas of their life that are not working that they avoid, and they throw themselves entirely into this, and then their marriage falls apart. Other things fall apart. Okay. Then what you're speaking about are the people who maybe don't have purpose and meaning and are trying to find it. Let me give you a quick way for them to find it. Draw on a piece of paper. Okay. Take a blank piece of paper and draw a spiral all the way inward. Okay. At the beginning of the spiral, okay, I put it sideways, long ways. At the beginning of the spirals, you were born. Okay. Little round head, 2 eyes and a smile, born. Take 30 minutes to just whatever comes in your heart and mind about the peaks and valleys of your life, the things that mattered. I'm 3 months old, I go to Africa. 2 years old, I come back. My little sister's born. My uncle dies. Whatever it is. I move to a new place. I love my school. Whatever the highs and lows of your life are, all the way until the middle, which is now. Okay? That holds the key to your purpose. Why? Because whether it is your bliss or your heartbreak, it is what matters to your heart. So what I'll tell you is, and we can bring it all full circle round. When I came home at 2 years old, my older sister didn't want me there, didn't want to separate time with my parents. So naturally, this 3.5-year-old doesn't meet a new baby, she meets a 2-year-old. She starts bullying me because she doesn't want me there. She doesn't know how to get me out. I shut down communication, shut down my heart, don't show anybody my feelings, and I just start pleasing the world. Is it a surprise to you 20, 30 years later that I burn out? What is my calling in life? Helping people express their emotions, being a master communicator for companies. And so if you go through your bliss and your heartbreak, you figure out what the highs and lows, all that is figuring out what moves you in your heart. If you start healing your biggest heartbreak, you will figure out so many ways that can serve the world. But here's the kicker, Vishal. Why have I done 70 podcasts and all these things in the last 2 years as I launched a book? Because when I help others find their voice, connect to their disappointment, become more brave, be courageous, have the hard conversation, help the startup, connect to their teams, build this momentum, it puts my 2-year-old back on the recharger, and it heals me while I serve the world and I change the world. So the key to finding your true purpose is knowing what your greatest heartbreak is, helping that heal as you serve the world, because then you recharge every time you share with other people.
So the world is going through a mental health crisis right now, and there are various tools to measure some of these things, right? In terms of there are different scales, and even for diabetes, you can take a test. So as a leader, what could we do? How could we? Is there a question to ask at the end of every month, or how do I identify people within my circle, not just my company or team, but even within my friend circle, my family circle, to identify if somebody is suffering from burnout and
Yep.
then ask them to seek for help?
Okay. So the Powered by Me book that I wrote, I also have an assessment with it. It'll take someone 15 minutes. And here's the shift, Vishal, that I think is happening in the world. You as a leader cannot be responsible for the 15 people that report to you. That's going to get turned on its head. The 15 people that report to you are responsible for one person, and it's themselves. You, my friend, are responsible for you. As a leader, you have to empower these 15 people to know what their energy levels are, know what they need, come to you with clarity and a request of what they need from you. You can't be doing all of this in a world moving this fast and take care of Vishal. We're turning this leadership model on its head. Now we have to empower. Remember when I said we have to upgrade the human software to meet the pace of the world? It's no longer the leader's job alone. It is every person's job to know themselves and clearly communicate to your leader what you need. That being said, this mental, how I told you, where you are from burned out to fully charged at work and in life is whether you have a net gain or a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. Here are some of the questions. And for those of you listening, I'm going to give you the link. You're going to have not only the assessment, but you're going to have me walking you through every part of this assessment. Okay? So I'm just going to do an overview here. If I'm asking you, I'm thinking about your physical health. I'm thinking this. How well are you nourishing yourself with whole foods throughout the day? Or are you someone who's just grabbing anything you can from fast food and shoving it in just so that your stomach shuts up so you can keep going? Okay. So how well are you nourishing yourself with food throughout the day? Number 2, sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. That's what the body needs. Okay. For those of you that think I'll sleep when I'm dead, I don't need sleep. And by the way, nothing's getting done on my to-do list. What I'd say to you is, you're right. If you're speaking about your external to-do list, your email inbox growing, but what you may not know is that your body, in order to keep you functioning, has an internal to-do list that gets done in those 7 to 9 hours. Let me tell you the 3 things that happen. Number 1, physical repair. Your immune system, your muscles, if you've worked out, physical repair is happening while you sleep. 2nd, memory consolidation. You want to remember all this data that was coming in? You need to sleep if you want your body to integrate that. 3, emotional processing. So if you do not get enough sleep, do you know what your body does? It skips over physical repair. It skips over memory consolidation, and it only does emotional processing. So in this experience, what you are doing is you think, once again, you're focused in the external world. You're not taking care of the internal world. So this is the question I ask you. Do you wake up in the morning and feel well rested? That's a pretty easy way that someone can answer. Am I well rested? Okay. Next is, do you have even energy throughout the day? And for movement, that's for energy. Movement is about, do you have a way that you joyfully move in your body 3 to 4 times a week? Okay. Simple questions. Now, here's the kicker. People will answer only using their head. What we've talked about today is the importance of the body map, because your body never lies. If I say I'll sleep when I'm dead, but I tune into my own body map and it feels like a lead brick, if picking up my legs feel hard, guess what? This answer is not enough. So if your body and your mind are not in agreement, your body wins. That's a net drain of energy. Then you move on to mental. Mental is about making mistakes, like we spoke about it. When you make a mistake in a world moving this fast and the unknown and uncertainty, do you think of it as a failure? Do you skip over it as fast as possible? Or do you think of it as a learning opportunity? So there's a whole series of questions. The ones for emotions are, what areas of your life are you avoiding conflict in? Work, home, family, finances. Where are you avoiding conflict? Because now I know exactly where you're having an emotional drain. Flip side of that question, what areas of your life give you joy? This is how quick the questions are. And people can take an inventory all the way through your spiritual meaning, purpose questions. So the idea here is, in less than 15 minutes, you have everybody take it for themselves, because guess what, Vishal? We as leaders, no matter how sharp we want to be, we're going to pick things up late. If you train your people to be able to do their own energy management, they know where they're having a net gain and a net drain. They can self-manage, they can ask for what they need, and you as the leader can do your job to deliver that. But you as a leader cannot be trying to figure out, is Neha burned out? The nurse had to tell me I was burned out.
Exactly. So before we end, one interesting question here, that can somebody recover from burnout, or does it have any lasting psychological or neurological changes? Is this like a reversible situation?
100%. So here's the thing. People say to me, you've written a book, Talk RX, on conflict. So you must have no conflict in your life. Your relationships must be amazing. You wrote a book on burnout. You must never burn out. None of these things are true. I have conflict in my relationships and I burn out. Okay? But here's the difference. I know myself. So you know what that allows me to do? I pick up the signals very quickly. I know exactly when a conversation is going to head into conflict. I take a pause. I tell someone, I'd really like to have this conversation with you. Give me the weekend to sleep on it and I'll pick it up on Monday. Do you know what I do? I came off a burnout book tour, and podcast extravaganza feeling burned out. Okay. But the most important thing was the moment I realized I started getting irritable, the moment I realized I wasn't myself and I was making mistakes, guess what I did? I asked for time. I delayed things. I gave myself the space and I recovered quickly. So this is not about never having these things happen. It's about picking up the signals early, having the toolkit, and empowering not just yourself, but those you love and lead with their own information, because we are now moving in a world that's moving way too fast. Each of us taking care of ourselves and being able to function together, it's going to be about trust. It's going to be about self-awareness. It's going to be about agility, and it's being able to pivot. If you're investing in others, you must be caring about their self-awareness, their ability to pivot and correct course. So to me, I think what we're looking for now, if you're stuck in the old paradigm, you're going to be left behind, and you're going to be left behind quickly.
Again, thanks a lot, Neha, for this wonderful session. I think it was extremely amazing to hear from you about burnout, uh, how to actually find uh, mechanisms to cope with this. But what I really enjoyed is your whole idea of looking at this as the software and upgrading yourself. I would just like to add that not just the software, but you should think of this like an operating system
You
of
bet.
how you operate
You bet.
from a mind, body, and soul perspective.
Yeah.
Once again, thanks a lot. I think the resources you have pointed out to, we'll of course post it to all our members, all the community members. It is going to be definitely of a lot of value for people. Once again, thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you, Vishal. And I'm going to just do something in case you guys want to use it. Okay. Like after all of this, I think 3 most important resources that people can get. Number 1, we gave them the Powered by Me toolkit. So you can get actual exercises right now if you're hanging on a thread that will put you back in a place of feeling more resourceful. Second, if you're somebody who's suffering from anxiety, that's a loop of thoughts in your head over and over again that are draining you of energy. There is some tools for you to get out of that loop, and that's the anxiety link that you can use. The third one is your own self-assessment for burnout for yourself and those you love and lead. And that comes along with 6 short videos where I walk you through the whole assessment so that you don't just use your mind, but you also use your body map to give you that information that you need so you can take an accurate assessment of where your energy is. Yeah?
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.